The animated spring function allows you to define an animation that operates off of friction and tension. This is the best way to mimic and animate as if it was physical motion. In our demo, we have an animated value set up on state that defaults to 1. We've set up an animated style with a scale transform, and we have a touchable without feedback that calls this handle press function and animates a view inside of it. In our handle press function, we're going to say animated.spring. The animated.spring matches all of the other animated functions, so it will take the animated value first, so we'll say this.state.animation. We'll then pass in a configuration object. What we'll do is say toValue of 2, and then call start. The animated spring has various defaults set up. It has a friction of 7 and a tension of 40 as its default. So now when we refresh our simulator and we press on it, we can see that it has a slight bounce to it, a slight spring. However, if we want to make this more noticeable, we'll change our friction and make it less friction than 7. So we'll pass in 2, and then we'll say tension of 160. This adds basically energy to the spring. So the higher this value, the more springy the spring will be. And then this will cause it to slow down. So the higher this is, then the quicker that the spring will slow down. However, with a low friction, this means that it will bounce. So if we refresh this and we press on our thing, we can see that it's much springier and bouncier than it was before. In our start function, we're just going to call an animated timing to reset our scale. So we'll say animated.timing, this.state.animation, toValue of 1 with a duration of 100 milliseconds, and then we'll call start. And this will allow us to see kind of when the animation settles down. So when I press this, it'll bounce for a while and then shoot back down to 1, and that's when the animation has completed. So you can see that that took a little bit of time, and that's because it's mimicking a real spring, and that animation does take a little bit of time to settle before it is completed. Finally, one other thing to note is that spring allows the value to overshoot, and what that means is that even though this is saying toValue of 2, that is only a spot where it will settle. It will be complete when it reaches the value of 2. So this actually will spring past 2, and the value will go higher than 2. And so if we press on this, we can see that it actually went higher than the point that it eventually settled at. To show this off, we're going to attach a listener to our animation value. So we're going to say this.state.animation.addListener, which will receive a callback, which receives a object with a value key on it. And we'll say console.log our value. Inside of here, we're going to say press Command D, or if you are on a different development environment, we're going to bring up the development menu and say debug JS remotely. This will open up a debugger here, and we press Command Shift I, or however you open up your console, and we will switch back to our simulator. And when we press, or when we refresh, and then press on our spring value, we can see that it takes a little while to settle down again, and that there are a significant amount of values, especially here, that shot over the 2 value that we were going towards.